Hello and welcome to Art and Self. I'm Cindy Ingram, your host and the founder of Art Class Curator, the Curated Connections Library, and the Art and Self Connection Circle. This is a podcast where we experience the range and depth of what it means to be human, seen through our connections and conversations about works of art. These art conversations are here to show you that art is here for you as a catalyst, a challenger, a coach, and a comfort. Before we get started, take a moment to fill up your lungs with a deep breath. Connect with your body and your mind and your spirit, and get ready to discover what art has to show you. All right, I am excited to welcome Dr. Michelle Gordon to the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. So happy.
All right. Yeah. So how about before we get started, can you introduce yourselves to our listeners?
Yeah. So I'm Dr. Michelle Gordon, lovingly known as Dr. G by the people that work with me. And I am a recovering general surgeon. And I say recovering because in July of 2020, I closed down my multi-million-dollar practice, realizing that it was not the career I needed at the time. It was time to make a change. And I had always been interested in the brain and psychology and coaching, and it really came to a head with COVID. And I worked the front lines of COVID, and it was really demoralizing, and I didn't like how I felt, and I hadn't liked how I felt for a really long time. And so it was time to make a change, and that's what I did. And I switched to coaching full-time. And when I say coach, I think that's a kind of a loaded word. I would say more like mentoring. My approach is really on how to build the habits that are required to get you to the next level in your life.
And then what types of people do you typically work with?
So I have a couple of types of women primarily who come to work with me, although I've worked with men as well. Usually it's women who are in midlife who are having some sort of identity crisis, or menopause has come and has given them an opportunity to reinvent, kind of like what it did for me. But I also work with executives who are just really feeling burned out, and executives, professionals like doctors and lawyers who really want to love every second of their lives. And so I've got a couple of different programs for different types of people.
Awesome. So we'll put links to all of those in the show notes if anybody is interested.
The best way is just to get on my mailing list, my email list. That's it. That's all you have to do, and then you'll hear about everything.
Great. What's the website for that?
That's drmichellegordon.com, drmichellegordon.com, and you can get on there.
Perfect. And we will also put that in the show notes. All right. So I'm going to show you 4 works of art. I want you to not pay too much attention to titles because I like to really focus on the image, but I'm going to tell the title so that the people listening can know what we're talking about. Listeners, if you want to see these artworks, you can head over to the show notes, and then you can also watch this on YouTube, which will have an image of the artwork that we chose nice and big for you to watch. I went a little bit off my typical for this because I usually pick things that the person I'm talking to wouldn't necessarily have seen before. But you'll see here there is one that I know you're familiar with, but I just had to keep it in. So you'll see it when
my favorite painting ever.
Yep. And you shared that painting with me, and then you had such great thoughts about it. I was like, let's just put it in here. And potentially talk about it. Okay, let me get my screen share going. All right. So our first option is Murmurs by Dorothea Tanning. And then the second option you'll recognize, which is Dante and Virgin by William Adolphe Bouguereau. And this was the painting that she shared with me that I thought was so cool. Third painting is When We Return, You Won't Recognize Us by Glen Brown. And then our fourth is The Nightmare by Henry Fuseli.
I think I've seen The Nightmare in a museum before.
Yeah, it's at Cleveland Museum of Art is what I want to say. I
Oh,
might be wrong.
I may have seen it there years and years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, do I have to pick only one?
Yep.
Mm, man.
You can share which ones you're thinking about too, if that would
Yeah,
help.
so Dante and Virgil, I love, and I've spent a lot of time talking about that, only because of the way he used color to
Hmm.
show the the fact that the man being bitten is losing himself. And then this dispassionate observer, which is very interesting because there's some metaphor there, right? It could be, Dante and Virgil could be the observer of our brains when our brains are lying to us, and here
Mm.
they are lying, with the men being kind of taken. But there's so much passion in that.
Yeah.
Um, so I love that painting, and I go to museum, Orsay Museum in Paris every time I'm there to look at it because it is fascinating and massive. And it was simply I don't know, he was trying to win an award and he didn't, but um, but I love it. And the gargoyle and the dead guy and all the things. It's
Yeah.
just a version of hell. And you look in the background and you see, like what's going on in the background. Are they killing each other? Are they loving each other? I mean, like, it's like, what is this? And what is this like vampiric kind of kiss? We
Hmm.
could even think that maybe he's not losing his color. Maybe his color is coming back. So there's a lot of things to think about with this, but it's awfully macabre, and a lot of people don't like it for that reason. So, of these four images, I love this one the most, but the one I want to talk about is the when we come back, because we won't recognize ourselves. And the reason I say that is because it is fascinating, and I've never seen it before.
Awesome. Okay, so we're choosing When We Return, You Won't Recognize Us by Glen Brown, created in 2020. And I'll make it a little bit bigger for us. Make sure. Can you still see it?
I can.
Okay, so before we start talking about it, can you describe it for our listeners, and then I'll fill in any gaps of things that I notice as well.
Wow. So the color palette is it's yellow orange primarily with blue. The background is blue gray. There's swirls of mostly yellow with hints of orange in it, and then in the bottom right corner, I see some red trying to creep in. But what I find really interesting about it is the way the blacks are used, because the black
Hmm.
looks like hair. It looks like hair that's falling as this metamorphosis is happening. And then there's several eyes in different places that you can look for. There's a face that's becoming another face, but then inside of the face that's becoming another face, there's eyes, and there's actually, it looks like there's an eye separate from the face that's becoming another face. And so it's quite a metaphor for transformation.
Hmm. Yeah, let's see if there's anything else that you didn't mention. I think it's pretty clear. I mean, it really is a hard to describe. All of them seem to be. I say this every
Yeah.
time. Like it's hard to describe this, so just check it out in the show notes. And um, yeah, but the it's just a basically a bust of a person. We see the shoulders, neck, and then two heads morphing, and then a lot of these black circular lines and all over the place, and then the two faces sort of um,
Kind of like how the one
merging.
the face to the left um is the mouth on one side, the ear of the face to the right. And
Yeah.
that you can see how the movement, there's a lot of movement in this
Yes.
still painting, which is, you could it almost makes you think about how in movies that they'll take faces and still them as they move, kind of, like
Hmm.
this, and then
Yeah.
and they've superimposed it on each other. And so, but also it looks like there's two different genders here to me.
Yeah, I see that too. I see the one on the left as male and the one on the right as female.
See, now
Is
that's
that
interesting because I see the one on
this?
the left, to me, is female and the one on the right
Oh.
is male. Isn't that interesting?
Oh, that is interesting.
Yeah. And mostly
Huh.
because I think that the black coming off of the chin kind of looks like a beard, maybe,
Right.
but it's not just that, it's also the features. But even above the lip of the one on the right, there's a face.
Like right here,
Nope. So
up here.
on the so on the lip, just right there,
Uh-huh.
I see a face there.
Like a little one?
Yeah, real small face.
Huh.
I wish I could share
Yeah, like I don't know how to make you have a
I
point or two.
I can request remote control
Oh,
and you
okay.
can let me um
Okay. I'm gonna have to
so I'm
open
talking.
system settings. Let's see
Oh,
if it'll let
yeah,
me do this.
it's not allowing me.
Okay, hold on. I have to enter my password. Hold on.
Okay. If we draw, can we draw on it? I don't know. Anyway,
Okay. I think I've given you.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. So can you see my mouse? Do you
Yes.
have
Oh, cool. I didn't even know this was possible.
Yeah. So right here, I think this looks like an eye, a couple of eyes, angry
Huh.
eyes. And then there's a little bit of a mouth here. You can see this as head. So, I mean, I know that's a stretch, but it just kind of spoke to me as another face. This over here looks like an eye looking this way.
Yeah, I see that one too. Well, and even if you just the more you look at all of the black line areas,
Yeah.
the more faces start to emerge. But that's what happens like when I'm in the bathroom and I'm looking down at like the bathroom tile, all of a sudden like the more I stare at the tile, the more images start to pop out of it. And so that's kind of happening with this too. Like there's this looks like a nose down
Yeah.
right here. There's like the more and then there's like a but then that thing that looks like a nose also could look like an eye with eyelashes. So
Well, yeah. And
it's
then
really
this over here
fascinating.
could look like a hand. I mean, and then what is this? You
Oh,
know?
I've lost your mouse.
Oh, I got it. Do you have it? Here, I got the mouse. So down here in the bottom right corner, I mean, like, what is that? It looks like a penis. So,
Yes.
um, but the thing is that as humans, we're really wired to recognize faces, and so we're going to see
Hmm.
faces in things that weren't even required, weren't even intended to be faces. We just see them, and I
Yep.
see in the travertine tile in my bathroom all the time. I see faces. I see a face here and there.
So I'm wondering what you think is happening here. Is one of these figures like the main one, and then the other one is transforming, morphing from it? Or is it like what do you think is like happening with these two faces?
So my interpretation of this particular painting is that the person on the right over here
Hmm.
is becoming this person. This person's going to turn and actually embody this, and this person's kind of going away. That's the motion that I see.
Mm.
Everything's moving towards the right.
So they're if she just well, you said it's a he. So if they just move their head, turn it, then their faces will be together. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I actually think that what's happening is that this one on the left is taking over this one on the right, and the one on the right is going to actually kind of the one on the right is just going to actually kind of move up and out, and this one's
Okay.
going to take over. So that's what it looks like to me. This is such
Okay.
an interesting painting.
Yeah.
This is from
So
August of 2020.
it said 2020. I don't know
Because
the
I
exact
like to
month.
think about how the pandemic has played on people's
Yeah.
subconscious. And this really is you could see it as the fact that we had the pandemic and life will never be the same for us. COVID is never going away.
Hmm.
And we have it coming in and it's kind of taken over.
Yeah. It's like mixed everything up, changed who we are. Um, I also, I'm looking at the the figure on the left's eyes,
Hmm.
and to to me, they look very sad. He looks very sad. Like he's got this red around his eyes that almost looks like he's sick or he's been crying. Um, his mouth is like morphing into an ear, and I just get this general sort of sadness from him. But then the one coming out, um, I kind of see it as you see it as they're going to be merging. I see it as she's leaving him. Well, then I can't need to stop saying she because
that's okay. The one on the right,
the one on the right.
Yeah, I think the one on the right is actually going to leave as well. I think that the one on the left is coming in to embody, and the one on the right is being overtaken and will be. So the motion to me all looks like it's going to the right. Everything looks like it's going to the right, and that goes with how the swirls are on the sides. It just the movement feels like it's to the right. Like something new has come in and the thing on the right has to go. And that goes along with the way we read, right? So for somebody who reads left to right, right to left, okay, it would be the other way. Okay. Yeah. So if you're from Israel or somewhere in the Middle East or Japan, for example, where they read the other way, then they would probably see movement the other way. For us, because we read the way we do, left to right, I just see everything moving to the right. And that's just like natural timeline for me because of the way probably. I mean, that's a supposition, but it just looks like everything is moving from left to right.
Yeah. And then I started to look too, as you were talking at the one on the right is, the left, I see him as really kind of sad and more stoic. And he also looks very much like, there's a Michelangelo sculpture of the Lorenzo de Medici. Hold on, I'm just gonna see if I can pull it up real fast. Where I think it looks, it's the same. Hold on, it's the same. It might not be Lorenzo. It might be one of the other Medicis. Hold on. That's something from this temple. Okay. See if I can find. No, it's this one.
Where is this?
Okay. This is in Florence. The Medici Chapel. It's in Florence.
Excuse me.
This
I haven't been to Florence yet. I've been to Rome.
I can't not see this sculpture.
Yeah.
In that for some reason it's like the same. He's got like this this armor on. So we'll put this in the show notes. This is from the Medici what is it called? The Medici
sarcophagus?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it is a tomb of Medici Chapel in Florence. And then it's the one with night and day on it, but it's this is Giuliano de Medici. He's Lorenzo's son. But yeah, it's like the curly hair and then kind of looking off to one side with the armor on. Like the whole time I'm just like, that's him. I'm just seeing it. And even like the serious look on his face.
So I wouldn't say he looks like he's wearing armor. I would say he's wearing a wife beater.
Yeah, I can see that too. Yeah. I think is what I'm seeing is all the swirly lines, all the curls are like mimicking kind of like the decoratedness of it.
Yeah.
But then the other face feels like it's very much like the emotion that I'm getting from that is like longing. Like it's looking up, it's trying to it's trying to lift up and away, like there's something off above them that it is wanting and longing for and is so moved to get to that it's sort of pulling away from.
Yeah, there's another interpretation for this, which would be that the character on the left is actually freeing itself from the character on the right and will become its own. You could actually see it like pulling up off of the original. as if they were maybe conjoined twins that got broken apart,
Yeah.
or the soul leaving the body in death. I mean, there's just a lot of metaphor.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm feeling. It's this like uh it's like the soul part, like, or it's like a spirit or something, because it's even that face even looks like it has more white on it than the other one does, and it
Mhm.
feels a little bit more or less physical. It's more like ethereal, whereas the we have really kind of strong lines of the one in the background. I'm gonna start saying the one in the background because I think the right and the left is
Which is the one in the
confusing.
background, though? I don't. Is it the one on the left or the one on the right?
And I think, are we saying left and right the same? Are you saying left
Well,
as when you're looking at it, or as if you are it?
as if I'm looking at it. So this to me is left. This to me
Okay,
is right.
then we're okay. Then left and right's working.
Yeah.
For some reason, sometimes you'll say it, and I'm like, wait, I think
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
okay,
And since different genders, it's hard to say. So,
yeah,
um,
okay,
but this is the more yellow of the faces, and this is the
yes,
more blue of the faces. Um, yeah, it is a very interesting painting. I think the thing that I find the most fascinating, the reason is like, why all the hair? Why all the black? What are we doing? Are we shaving? Are we,
yeah,
what? Because I think about like all these little hairs, and I'm a little bit neurodivergent. And one thing that really bothers me is certain feelings. And
hmm
one of the reasons why my hair is as long as it is, and I shaved my head during the pandemic, is I cannot stand the feeling of hair. Like, I
yeah,
hate getting a haircut. I hate going into the salon. I go to a barber, and then I, shave during the pandemic because I can't stand little hairs. They hurt. They
yep.
itch, and I can't stop moving. Right. I'm moving around just thinking about it.
I
And
have the
so
same way. That's why I have my hair short too.
looking at this painting makes me feel creepy because of the feeling,
hmm
just the feeling of little hairs everywhere, and how that feels. I shaved my son yesterday. My son's getting ready for an operation, and he's he's special needs, and so he didn't shave for weeks and weeks. And I sat him down in his shower and shaved him, and then ran away because he had like this big beard and a lot of hair, and I was like, and I could just feel it everywhere. And so it's the same kind of thing. I have this aversion um to hair, and it just feels like there's so much hairy kind of weirdness going on in this painting.
It fascinates me too that even with that, this is the one that you chose. Do you think that played a
Well,
part in it?
I think it did. Yeah, it was the hair. The hair is what drew me because it was so weird that I wanted to talk about. Like, why is there so much hair in this painting? It's so disgusting.
Okay, so let's see. Let's figure it out. Why is there so much hair in this painting?
I mean, there's not really like the hair on the head is more like these yellow kind of wispy things, and they're, whatever it is. And that might actually be like soul aura, and maybe not even hair on the head, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is the hair like that's everywhere representing like what happens when we fall away from our mortal coil? And I don't know. Like, what did this paint what did this painter think about? Like, we've got the chin hair over here, the guy on the right, he's got a couple weird little tufts of things coming off his chin, but the rest of it's just falling off. It's weird.
Yeah, I keep going. I think for a minute that it's like energy. Like maybe it's just depicting the energy of like maybe the darkness, or because this does feel to me a little bit like depression.
Mm.
Um and so I'm wondering, like, I think I'm seeing that, like, especially in the one in the left's face, and then how um I have struggled with depression before, and it feels really flat and kind of hopeless, and like, you know, and it's this sort of, and like, or especially when you're out in or among other people, it's just this need to sort of not be there and just disappear, and like, and it's almost like I can see that with her. So I'm one, like, part of me think that these all this blackness is like the depression, like pulling
Well, it could be. I
them
mean,
back.
it could be. You think about depression and how it
Mm-hmm.
pulls you down,
Mm-hmm.
right? For me, it's never wispy. It's
Yeah.
never, it's always a really strong rope,
Yeah.
pulling me down. And so for me to see it depicted in this manner, could we see on the left over here? I don't know. Can you see my mouse?
No, not right now. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. I haven't figured out the pattern.
So on the left over here, we've got this, it's dark and there's like a demarcation. And could it be that it's trying to push this, the character on the left
Mm,
back in,
yeah.
because it all feels like it's moving. It's trying to move things to the right.
Yeah, because it's got those kind of those curved lines that are kind of
Yeah.
against the face. And it's interesting too, some of the hair the black lines are visible and like crisp, and then some of them are painted over and kind of hazy. Some of them you can see really detailed, but then some of them are really foggy, and some of them are very like layered, and then some of them are um, not. And so there's so much variety in those lines too.
Yeah. And then there's like a few like perfect circles,
Mm-hmm.
spirals. And so yeah, um it definitely has some power behind it, I think.
Yeah.
And then you also have in the neck here, you have this one area that is just like a circle. It's like a view into another world.
Is it that
And
blue, the blue circle?
yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm thinking, what is this?
Yeah. Well, especially because the background's blue, and
Yeah.
then you don't
What
see a lot of blue on the figure at all. You see a little bit on his forehead, but it's more mixed with the other colors. This one is more just, and it's right where you know what? It's right where his vocal cords would be,
it was right where
or the vibration.
the character on the left's vocal cords would be, not the
Right.
one on the right. Yeah, but
Right.
maybe that is like the seat of the will or whatever. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's so interesting. Um, yeah, it's
'Cause I almost feel like if he were to try to talk, he wouldn't be able to, with that mouth slash ear the way it is.
I think it would be like
Yeah, yeah, like it wouldn't come out. And also too, like the other face, the one on the right too, feels very animal to me. I keep seeing like goat. I think it's the little beard thing, and then some of the little swirly yellow lines almost look like horns, but it's almost like a uh I keep thinking of Pan for some reason because my daughter's reading. She's always talks about Percy Jackson, so I hear about Pan a lot. But like I
yeah.
see that element in there too.
Yeah, so there's some like ancient Greek kind of going on here.
Yeah,
That I don't know. To me, that face on the right feels like it's melting. It feels like
yeah.
it's really disappearing. It's really disappearing
Oh,
for a reason. This is a very interesting painting.
it
I'd like
is.
I'd like to know what the artist said about it.
Yeah, well, we can look that up after. I like to wait. I like to wait until we're fully done before we
Yeah, of
see what they
course.
say.
I mean, you know, I don't know. I've never seen this artist work before. And there's just so much there's no straight lines in this except for on the edges. Everything is
Mhm.
and so I wonder, if this artist was just experimenting. I and
Yeah, there's so much energy. Oh, you know what? I just find some straight lines right in the hatching.
oh yeah, but it's
There's some hatch marks.
so curly hairish kind of thing. But you
Yeah.
know what? We could look at that golden thing on the top of the head. And actually, now speaking of Greek mythology, I'm thinking Medusa now.
Oh,
Could be snakes.
yeah.
And is it Medusa looking at a dude who's actually going who's turning to stone?
That's interesting.
And then it's a totally different interpretation when you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
And then you have technology up here on the right, over here, that black eyeball kind of green
Mm-hmm.
thing. So that, it's almost like a robot or a drone or something that's recording the happening.
Hmm.
I've been reading a lot about virtual reality lately, and it's so funny thinking that we probably are in, a virtual reality, complex one, but the fact that we can change our perceptions with our thoughts. And when I look at things like this, it makes me think, you know, what it means to me, I can change anytime because I can
Mm-hmm.
just decide what it means to me, what it looks like, and kind of it's such a metaphor for how we choose to live our lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are things
Oh,
happening to me, or am I making things happen? Right?
it's fun now. I'm like, okay, one, I love a good we're living in a simulation conversation, but I with that question of um, are things happening to me or am I causing things to happen? It's kind of fun to look at this through the each of those lenses and how the interpretation changes. Like um, when I look at it, thinking things are happening to me, a completely different interpretation happens than when I look at it through I'm in charge, like as if I'm the
Yeah.
main character. Um, that's really interesting. It's like two completely different lenses.
Yeah. And that's but I think this is such a good opportunity to say this is light. We can change the lens on our lives at any time
Yeah.
just by shifting our perspective. And just like we can look at this work of art from, the perspective of magic and soul imagery, or maybe even indigenous Americans with some sort of a soul transfer, or we can look at it from Greek mythology with Pan and Medusa, or we can look at it from hey, this is what it's like when we talk to our higher selves. So there's a lot of ways to interpret this, just as there's a way to interpret anything that happens in our life.
Yeah. And I think that's what's so something I love so much about coaching is, but you and I are both coaches that, you can work with someone and they are, um, if you were like I'm thinking of one particular person who was in my program last fall, who at the beginning of the program and the end of the program, if you were to take a look at her life, like everything would be the same. She had the same job, she had the same kids, all of her circumstances were the same. And at the end of it, she
Right.
says, "Nothing has changed, but I have changed." And like share her perspective on her life had changed, and how she viewed her life, choices she made, um, and all of that like dramatically changed her life when actually nothing in her life actually changed. The only thing that changed was what happened in her mind. And I think it was so powerful um, to experience. And I'm wondering what kind of I would love to hear from your perspective, having left a career in medicine. Like, how does can you see that story reflected in this painting at all?
Um, well, I suppose if we look at the character on the left as the one who is becoming free, um, free of societal constraints, free of shoulds, free of what I thought I was supposed to do, or what my 5-year-old brain decided I was supposed to do because of a belief I created at that time.
Mm,
And as I was able to shed those beliefs, I'm able to walk into who I really am, and the things that I really care about, which I'm still discovering.
yeah.
It's that's how I would interpret the character on the left is probably the one who's going to win out on this. And
Hmm.
she's to me the true self. And it's like, I mean, you could even say it's like a snake shedding its skin,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like the facade is dropping and the real person's coming through.
Yeah,
And
as you were talking, I started to imagine this painting in like an hour, or however fast this thing on the right's moving. But like as it can, if it's moving away, like where, like what would happen to the rest of it? And I was imagining all these black lines and all these swirls and all this drama like going with it, and then leaving behind the person like free of
yeah.
all that dark mess and just themselves
Yeah, and it
left.
does look like when you look at, I don't know if you can see the mouse here, but when you look at this, can you see the mouse or no?
I can't. No.
You cannot.
Nope.
Um,
It's right because the listeners anyway will need
okay.
to
So the
hear.
blue beneath the ear,
Mm-hmm.
the chin of
Yep.
the new being, right?
Mm-hmm.
As the being on the right moves away, the mouth starts to appear, the ear goes,
Yeah.
we start to see like more of this person who's got a clear in the middle part of the throat, which is a clear view into the next step, right? Into the next,
Yeah.
into the it's a clear view into the past, but it could also be a metaphor for the future. But it's a clear view depending on which side you're looking through,
Mm-hmm.
that, that is giving them the freedom to be who they are.
Yeah. They get their voice back.
Yeah, there's
They
just a
get,
lot going on in this painting.
yeah,
Uh,
totally.
yeah.
I keep getting drawn to the eye of the one on the right. This that yellow. It's like a yellow line that forms a circle right where the
Yeah.
eye would be.
Right.
And I've been staring at that at that spot the whole time. It's like, uh, and I don't know why, but it's just I'm so focused on that one part.
Well, I think what we're seeing is that eye is going to become the ear,
Mm,
and so it makes it. I mean, it's also kind of the center
right.
uh, of the action there. But if you see the black part, the black part's pushing everything to the right, and
Mm-hmm.
um, and while it's attached to the new, it's really attached to the old. And you think about the Matrix, right? And how in the Matrix those crazy things got on the ships. They look something like these black things
Oh,
that are
I
on the
haven't seen that in
surface.
so long. No
Yeah, but
idea.
it's just like it's almost like the black stuff is eating away at the old and is
Hmm.
pushing the old out. Maybe it isn't depression. Maybe it's necessity or new beginnings or God. You know,
Yeah.
there's just so much. I don't know. The more I look at it, the more I see, and that's I'm not one to spend a lot of time looking at any image, but there's something really familiar about the image on the left. Like it's it's really close to a, I want to say to a Da Vinci sculpture, but I can't place which one it is.
Hmm.
But if you see how the face is curved that way
Yeah.
and how chiseled it's going to be when it's done.
Yeah. It's okay. So now too, I'm looking at the forehead of the one on the left
Yeah.
and the left eye. There's like all that purple.
Uh-huh.
And then there's like this purple little circle on its head that has white coming off of it.
Mm-hmm.
But then all that black, it's like stuck to the skin. Like, is it like um I don't know. It looks like it's just glued to it, or if it's just like taking over. Um, but I hadn't really looked at it before. It looks so much different than the rest of the black lines to me and how they're interacting with his face.
Yeah.
Almost look like he's like smoking or something. That purple makes it look um I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it does get really, really dark towards the left of the painting.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the motion does really appear to be going to the left. So is that the question is, what is the black doing? Is the black pushing out the old?
Yeah.
I mean, even when you look at the nose of the character on the left, you can see the motion of the right moving out
Hmm.
with the blue and the yellows that are coming off. I just wish I could place where I've seen that before, because if I could, I could show you.
Hold on. I just want to pull up David.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe David, but I'm not sure.
I was just like, it hasn't,
It's not quite David.
not quite David, but it feels like Michelangelo. Michelangelo has these very chiseled faces like that, and so it has a touch of Michelangelo essence to it, to me.
Yeah, it's turned the other way, and so I'm trying
Yeah.
to um
Okay. Well, just it has a very Renaissance esque
Lily,
appearance
yeah.
to it. Okay, now so I don't normally look at the titles, but I want to reread the title again because I think it'd be interesting to apply that to what we've been talking about. So it is when we return, you won't recognize us. So what does that add to the meaning of this for you?
Um well, I mean that gives religious overtones to me.
Mm,
When we return, you won't recognize us. So when you return, where is it a reference to the rapture? Um,
mm,
is it the reference to those people who are waking up, which is happening more and more and more now after the pandemic? Um, is it a reference to um, reincarnation? I mean, there's just to me though, it's a very spiritual kind of thing.
yeah. Hmm. Yeah, like there's something spiritual happening to this person that will fundamentally change who they are to the point where they won't be recognized. So whether that's physically in this life or in another life or suddenly because we're noticing that the both faces look like different genders, um what if we looked at it through the lens of a gender transition?
It could be a gender transition. It could be something else, like a not just a gender transition, but like a I don't know. I just keep coming back to spiritual
Yeah.
transition. That's
And then I also look at it through the term of this was created in 2020. We don't know exactly what month, but that, that's been true for 2020, that pretty much everyone has come out of the pandemic a different person than who they were before. Some more dramatically and outwardly than others, but everyone has changed. Um, and so it could be referencing that as well. Like, and that the artist noticing that in the early days of what's happening. Um, yeah.
Does the winged victory have a face?
No. Well, eventually, at one point she did.
Oh, she did. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
So, but
not. It was found headless.
there's another sculpture at the Louvre that does have a face, and I can't remember what it's called. Um, there's, and it's not even. I mean, even the guide who took us through said it wasn't even that good. But um, but I think it's that face that I see.
Hmm. Well, if you find it, or if I find it, we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. Oh man, there's a lot of statues at the Louvre.
I know. I was like, that's a needle in a haystack problem right there.
I found the one I was thinking. It's Venus de Milo.
Oh, okay. Yep. Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, it's Venus de Milo. I'm pretty sure that's the one I see in it. I think.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, yeah,
I
that's
can
the
see
face.
that.
Finally, at least it came back to me. Yeah.
And now, like having done that, I'm like, because that one in the left has always been masculine to me, and like, but I can kind of see it a little bit more. I can see it differently
Yeah.
now. Suddenly,
It's nice about talking about art with other people.
yeah. Oh, it's so yeah. It's and you hear something that they say, and then it change, and then you look at it through a new lens, and then they look at it through your new lens, and then it just gets deeper and deeper. It's um, I love it so much.
Yeah. But that's actually I think that's the picture I see, even though yeah. It's like a combination of Michelangelo's David and Venus de Milo going
Mm-hmm.
on.
But just a very, I think, recognizable kind of classic face, and I think that that was probably very intentional on the part of the artist, is to make the face look like something you've seen before, someone you know, or like it adds a um, connection piece to it
But
and
then
allows you to see yourself in it.
right, but then if it's you won't recognize us, right? So maybe we get
Mm,
it all. Maybe maybe it is moving left. Maybe it's not moving right
mm,
because we recognize the one on the left, but we don't
yeah,
recognize about the one on the right.
that's true.
So maybe, maybe we get it all wrong.
You know what? It doesn't matter if we did or didn't. That's what I love about it. It's your own interpretation. It can be
About the
whatever.
artist, what the
It could be.
artist says.
No, I think once the artwork leaves the artist's hands, it becomes the viewer's too, and their meaning is a true meaning too. So
I always
that's
like
my
to find
my
out what
personal
their
point of view.
intention is.
Yeah, I am.
When I was in, gosh, where was I? In London, I went to the Tate Modern and I saw a piece that I really liked. And I took a picture of it. And it was American artist in, I think it was 20, like right after, sometime during Trump's reign. And and it was just really interesting to talk. She talked about the technology and how technology was really in our way. So
Hmm.
yeah, I should have brought the picture up for this, but I had no idea what this podcast was going to be like. So I didn't, this has been great.
Yeah, it just goes places, and you just go with it.
Yeah,
You never know. I never know where it's gonna go.
I love it. I love the ear mouth.
You love what?
The ear
The ear
mouth.
mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Well,
just
I
it's
just
just such
clicked
a
over to the artist page, which I don't normally do, just to see if he wrote anything about it, and he didn't. So we
he
don't know.
didn't. He
Nope.
just took a picture. Yeah. He just
Just
drew
on
a
his
picture.
website with the title. That's it.
That's great. I love it.
Okay, so if you could um, find in this painting any sort of meaning or message or thing that you would want to take away from it, what might that be?
So for me, it would be more like the answers are inside. Like
Hmm.
everything you need is inside you. You don't have to be like somebody else. You don't have to look like somebody else. You can look like how you look. You can be like who you are.
Mhm.
And the answer is inside. That's and there's a clear path, and there's a clear view to the future and the past.
Yeah. I love that because you and I were talking right before we started recording. We met at a online business thing a few years ago. And do
Yeah.
you mind if I say this? Like about okay, um, where we used to be more involved in sort of the like learning how to market from a bunch of guys who thought they who thought they had the answer on how to market things, and
Right.
that both of us have come along to this path of wait, we know we need to follow what's right for us and be our authentic selves and not follow someone else's formula. And I think that is a really powerful message. And I think it's fun that it kind of came back to that from before we started recording to this.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's the whole thing.
The whole thing.
The whole thing in life, I think. And and I think that it shows that personally, I think it's probably the most important message for anybody doing anything is, are you in alignment with you? Are you listening to yourself and your own emotions and listening to your own intuition on how to lead your life? And that's like the key to the best life that you can lead. Um,
Sure is.
I guess unless you're I guess if you're like a sociopath or something, but I think most people just if you follow your
Well, we have to have the
do your best.
caveat that,
Yeah.
if you're a serial killer, don't listen to us.
Yeah,
That
yeah. Your
that's
path is different. My brain is always like trying to find opposites to anything I say or anybody says, and so it's naturally always doing that. I have to stop. It's like stop looking for the butt.
Yeah,
It's
no,
just
we work. I mean, our brains lie to us all the time, right?
yeah.
As a matter of fact, so I've recently started rowing again, and I was never a big rower, right? Um, my friends were rowers in college and whatnot, and I just never got into it. But I got a rower in the pandemic because I thought it might be really good exercise, and then it just sat in my basement for a couple of years, and I'd use it, and I've used it exactly 34 times since I bought it. Okay, and I've been paying like $38 a month.
Yeah.
Um, and so I decided that I was going to use it at least at least weekly, and I've done that since the end of December. And then the other day I did a 36-minute row, and I came in fourth in my age group. And not that I was trying to be competitive, I was just trying to do a workout. But I thought, maybe I really am an athlete. And
Hmm.
because my brain just always says you're a fat slob, just always
Yeah.
tells me that. And so it's like I'm going to see what happens. What's going to happen if I row for 15 minutes every day for a month? What's going to happen to my body? And it isn't about anything other than just let's see.
I love that. I've been trying to take that sort of approach in life lately. It's just like let's just experiment and play and just see how things go. And coming from like this perfectionist, everything always has to be right. You don't do anything. If you can't do it right, don't do it at all mindset that I've had my whole life. Suddenly I'm like, that's why I don't exercise. That's why I have a Peloton sitting like 5 feet from me and I haven't been on it in months. It's like, it's because it's like I can't do it perfectly, so I don't do it at all. And it's, um, yeah,
Yeah, but what is perfect? I mean, see the problem
yeah.
with perfectionism thinking is that it really is a form of fear.
Hmm.
So when we look at it from that perspective and we realize that perfectionism is a form of fear, then we can start to face it and really ask ourselves, what am I getting from this? And when you ask yourselves you when you start to trust yourself and you start to realize that all the answers are inside you, then even for the behaviors that you consider bad, right? You say, what am I getting from this? What is my um, you know, what is my subconscious trying to protect me from or give to me with my avoidance of XYZ or my obsession over, this other thing. So for me, it's like, why do I obsess about pizza on the weekends? Because it's the weekend and I want to eat pizza. So sometimes I do. Who cares?
Yeah. Indeed.
You know? So but I think that there's just such an opportunity to sit down and ask yourself, like, what am I getting from this? What is it giving me? Because my brain is trying to help me somehow with the behavior, whatever it is. Maybe it's smoking, maybe it's eating, maybe it's not, maybe it's Netflixing for hours on a time. That happens. I do that. I'm guilty of that. And so the question then becomes, well, what am I needing right now that's keeping me? And I'll give you a perfect example. Yesterday, I watched Star Trek. I watched the new I watched like 4 or 5 episodes of that. And I was like, why am I not working? Why am I not in my office today? And I realized that I had been in my office the whole weekend. I did not take the weekend off because I had a weekend intensive in one of my classes. And I was like, oh, I need a day off. I need to not be in my office today. And so I took it and it was fine. I mean, I still exercised and whatnot, but it was like, I had that insight that it was okay to take the day off because I'd spent the weekend in my office. And part of me was like, not doing that today. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I always ask myself the question, what am I craving? Because there's moments where, like I have a cocoon, I get pillows and blankets, and I stack them all. That's my comfort thing. And it's like, because I know in the moment I need like the weight on me, I need to like be physically grounded, and it's like I'm craving comfort, so that I just pile it on. I could get that comfort lots of different ways, but if you like get to the if it's a behavior you're feeling guilty about too, that's like um something there's
Well, I
something
mean,
underneath it that you are
yeah.
wanting, you're trying to get through that thing.
But remember, even if you're having guilt or shame about something, it really is because you don't want to face it, right?
Yeah.
So shame for sure is like, I just don't want to look at it. And so I'm going to feel shame about it. But what happens when you shine the light on it?
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you shine the light on that thing, whatever it is? Maybe it's smoking. Maybe you feel guilty about smoking, or maybe it's eating, in the middle of the night, or whatever it is that you do I mean, we all have things that we're not happy about, right? But when you take the spotlight and say, well, what really is that giving me? And you have the courage to look at it, then there's no place for shame,
Mm-hmm.
because shame lives in the dark.
I was just looking at the painting as you were talking, and I was like, the light was shining on the one on the right's face, like you were shining the light on her or them, and then they were like leaving because it was like they were the shame
I mean,
leaving the
it is a
figure.
really great
Kind of fun to
metaphor
watch.
for like getting rid of shame.
Yeah,
Because what
interesting.
happens when you get rid of shame, you can unapologetically love yourself and be your
Mhm.
authentic self.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot in the last couple of years about self-love and loving myself. And I started at the end of 2018. I was on a cruise ship, not a ship, actually a yacht in the Caribbean for the New Year. And I realized that every time I looked in the mirror, I was saying to myself, I hate you.
Mm.
And I noticed it and I said, well, wait a minute. Like, if I were a child, how motivated would I be to do something if the person who was telling me to do it was always saying, I hate you?
Yeah.
And so I made a decision right then and there that every time I looked in the mirror, I would say, I love you. And then I had a very challenging year in my business in 2019. It was the year that I decided that it was time to close things down. And at the end of 2019, one of the surgeons who worked for me died by suicide.
Mm.
I had to fire someone for breach of contract. I mean, it was a very challenging year. But it was all leading to where I needed to be.
Yeah.
If I hadn't taken that step to say, I love you, like, I don't know where I'd be, because it was challenging. And there were times when I had suicidal thoughts and I said, no, this is not what I'm going to do. And I'd go for a run and I'd say, I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. And I actually think running saved my life.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that. I was on a podcast about running, and I said, and I'd never even thought of how much running had affected me. And I would go for a run, like every step. I love myself. It was like, and it helped. helped a lot, because
Yeah.
the brain, like, I don't know what it is, but like we beat down on ourselves. Like, why do we do that? Where is that okay? And I think it's just internalization of things that happen when we're children, that we decide we're bad and not good. And that's not true. Like, none of it's true. We'd never talk to anyone we love the way we talk to ourselves.
Yeah, I have a friend that if you say anything bad about yourself, she just stops and goes, "Be nice to my friend," like as because you're saying it to yourself, and it's so lovely. And then I have a book recommendation. If someone's really resonating with this, it's called "Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It." Have you ever read that?
Yeah, Naval Ravi, come on.
Yeah, and he just basically the gist. It's a pretty short book, but basically the gist is he just
Well, he
told himself,
rewrote it. He rewrote it because he stopped doing his own practice and he fell really hard. And so he actually, in the new book, he goes through like what it was like to build himself back up.
"Oh, I haven't
And
read the
so
new version."
yeah, it's worth a read. I mean,
Okay, I'm gonna
I
check
had
that
read
out.
that one, and that's when I started saying the things, but then I stopped doing it. So I picked up the new one, and this new one has really changed my life. It's really good.
Oh, okay. We are going to put the link to that in the show notes.
Fantastic. Great book.
And then and I'm going to go find the new version. I wonder if they've updated the Kindle version that I already have. I don't know. I might have to
No, I
rebuy
think
it
you
or
have to buy it again.
buy a new one. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I think, oh, go ahead. Oh, maybe
No,
not.
just let me know. You may, if you bought it off a Kindle, you might have renew. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, they might have. Okay. Good. I'm excited to read that because it's not something that is just like you start doing and then all of a sudden you're really good at it. It's
No,
a, it's a
you have to
practice.
practice it. And you know,
Yeah.
the hardest practice of that book is looking in the mirror and telling yourself you love yourself. That's hard.
Hmm.
That's hard. Like looking at yourself and loving your imperfections. Megan Trainor talked about this actually. Megan Trainor's a singer,
Yeah.
and she's really popular right now, but she talked about having going to therapy and having to stare at her naked body for 5 minutes in a mirror every day, and how all she saw for the first week or so was imperfections, and then she started seeing all the things that were great about her.
I love her song, I Love Me. Have
I
you
haven't
heard
heard
that
I
song?
haven't heard that one, but I have, I've heard the more recent one. I don't
It's
know
one of
it.
my shower songs, like when I need a boost. When I need some confidence. That one's so good.
It's so easy to feel, um I think there are things that can get us going, and then it's discipline that keeps us going. Discipline
Mhm.
and consistency. And without that, it's really hard to build anything.
Yeah.
If you're an entrepreneur like we are, the main thing that is vital that you protect, this is something I got out of our bro marketing course, is that you got to
Yeah.
protect your mindset, because
Yeah.
it's really easy to feel defeated and know that failure is just another way that it didn't work.
Yeah.
Just keep
And
trying
it's
things until they work.
you got it. And the name of the game is to stay. Wait, shoot. I was gonna pull the quote that he used to always say.
Oh,
The name of the game is to stay in the game until you win the game. That's what he used
yeah,
to say
that's
all the
fun.
time.
You don't have to get it started. You just got to get it going.
Oh, yeah,
You
that's
don't have
another
to get
one.
it perfect. You just got to get it going. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah. Get it
All
started.
right. Indeed. Okay, so a great inspiring moment there at the end, and we'll make sure we put those resources in the show notes. But before we end, is there anything left in the painting that you feel is unsaid that you want to bring up, or did you feel like we covered it pretty well?
Well, I would say that this painting, which seemed so bleak to me in the beginning, now feels like a lot of possibility after talking
Hmm.
about it for an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It feels a lot more light. It feels like more hopeful.
Yeah.
Um, so awesome. Well, thank you very much for this conversation. And before we go, can you remind everyone of your website and how to find you on social media and things like that?
Yeah. So you can get on my email list at drmichellegordon.com, DrMichellelleGordon. It's the best fucking newsletter for midlife professional women. Um, but you don't really necessarily have to be a midlife professional woman, but a lot of tips on mindset and happiness and
Mhm.
productivity. And I send out a newsletter. I try to do it twice a week, usually with a link back to a podcast or something that's interesting. On social, on Facebook, I'm Dr. Michelle Gordon, DrMichelle Gordon, or Dr. M. Gordon, which is where I post mostly, which is my personal Facebook page. Instagram, Dr. Michelle Gordon, spelled out doctor. And LinkedIn is Dr. Michelle Gordon with a DR. And I post on LinkedIn every day as well. So
Awesome.
I'm all over. I share my life. I cook a lot. I show my cooking stuff. I travel when I can. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to Art and Self. And if you loved what you heard, please consider leaving me a rating or a review on iTunes. And share this episode with one friend who you know needs to hear what we talked about today. You will find links to the artworks that we discuss over at the show notes at artandself.com. And you can also join my email list to get notified of all of the new upcoming episodes. The videos of these episodes are also available over on YouTube at Art and Self. And you can also follow me on social media, on Instagram at Art and Self and on Facebook at Art and Self Cindy. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful week. I'll see you next time.